Welcome to Growing Your Team, a podcast designed for small business owners seeking to grow their company with the help of employees and contractors. Your time is limited, which means growing and leveraging teams is essential for business success. The Growing Your Team podcast is the place to learn tips and techniques designed to help you know when it's the right time to hire, how to select perfect fit team members, and how to maximize productivity while creating a positive work environment. Drawing from her 10-plus years of leadership and hiring experience, here is your host, Jamie Van Kuyk.
Hello, Jamie Van Kuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, we're talking about hiring VAs and why they're not always the answer. So I know we've talked about this. If you've listened to a bunch of episodes, we've heard VAs come up multiple times. We have episodes out there that I'm linking to in the show notes about helping you smoothly hire VAs, giving you resources to hire VAs. So VAs is a very popular hiring choice for small businesses. In a lot of cases, it is exactly what small businesses need. But I often hear this phrase that makes me go, ugh. And that is, I'll just hire a VA. And typically when I hear this, it's because people see what it takes to make a good hire and they're overwhelmed. They're like, wow, that sounds like a lot. I have to invest a lot of time and energy to get a good employee, to get a good, possibly part-time assistant who's an employee. So they're just like, you know what? I'm just going to hire a VA. It's going to be simple. I don't have to go through all this. And guess what? That's not true. If you go back and listen to a bunch of our episodes, going all the way back to episode 3 with Jenna Corelli, she tells you about how she hired the wrong person at first as a VA. There's been multiple times where people have told you throughout their information they shared on their guest episodes that they have hired the wrong people. And this is typically when they've hired VAs. Now, of course, we've had people that have shared how they've hired the wrong people in other positions too, but you're not immune from hiring mistakes when you hire a VA. So today we're going to talk about why you shouldn't just hire a VA, and 2, how to be successful when you do hire a VA. Okay, so let's kick off with why you shouldn't just hire a VA. And that is, there's this misconception that hiring a virtual assistant is much easier than hiring an employee. And if you participate in Facebook groups or any sort of business forum, you'll see the posts where people will just say, I need to hire a VA or I want to hire a VA. And so many people will respond with recommendations or putting their own links out there and contact information for their packages. So people see that and say, hey, look, I can say I'm hiring a VA. I'm going to get flooded with applicants, and then I can just easily make a decision. It's not that simple. It's not that easy. When people do that, typically they end up hiring the wrong person. They end up hiring someone that's not a fit for what they want and what they need. Yes, when you hire a VA, they're a contractor, and this hiring process looks slightly different, but it still should have the basic core things that help you narrow down for what you need. When you hire a VA, you still need to figure out what tasks this person is doing. You still need to figure out what will make working with this VA be a successful relationship. And here's the kicker. You still have to interview the person in a way. Yes, when you hire contractors, it's not the same interview as if you're hiring an employee, but you still have to dig in to make sure if this person is right for you. So like I always say, someone can be great at what they do, but it doesn't mean they're right for you. So someone could be producing great results as a virtual assistant in someone else's business, but they're not going to produce those same results in your business. Also, remember, virtual assistants are business owners. They might be a business of one, but seeing they're a contractor or a freelancer, that puts them in the category of business owners. And what does any good business owner know how to do? Lead sales calls. So when you get on a call with them, they are looking to close the deal. So typically they'll lead the conversation, they'll ask you questions, and they'll put things in a way to make you say, yeah, this is the person I should hire. But they've led the conversation. You need to lead the conversation. So hiring a VA is not simpler than hiring an employee. Also, you have to remember when people say, oh, I'll just hire a VA, they're thinking sometimes, once again, that simplicity of just being able to go post something out there in a business group, get a bunch of people a response, pick the one that maybe has the packages that are best for them and being like, oh, that was easy. But you also have to remember that virtual assistants are different than employee assistants. Why? Because once again, virtual assistants are their own business, which means they are doing work for your business, but they do not work for your business. So it's a different relationship. There's different things that you can control because technically when you work with contractors, they control the relationship. Think about it. When you work with your clients, yes, you want to form good relationships with your clients. You want to make sure they're happy, but you technically control the relationship. You set the prices. You set when you're available. You set the communication frequency of when you respond. Once again, you do that in a way that makes it so the customer feels heard and supported. But if you have a customer that is constantly needing updates, constantly trying to control the situation, constantly making you treat them or act differently around them than you do any of other customers, how do you feel? You feel like, oh my gosh, this client is a nightmare and I want to end this relationship. I either want to fire them or I can't wait until our relationship's done. And that's because they're trying to control the relationship as the client. So it's the same thing when you hire a contractor. The contractor, because they're a business, controls the relationship. You're hiring a business. Once again, they're a business that is doing work for your business because they don't work. They're not an employee of your business. They are not in your business. So some positions, some tasks cannot just easily be given to a VA. For example, you need someone to help you answer the phones or respond to emails. Well, you can't control a VA to work the same business hours as you. They control their schedule. Now, their business hours, they might work pretty standard business hours in their business, and their standard business hours overlap with your standard business hours, so they can help in some regards, but you can't control that. You also can't control when they go on vacation. If they want to take every Friday off, guess what? They run their own business. They can. That might mean that you don't work with them and you find somebody else, but technically they can make those changes and you can't tell them no. All you can do is find someone else to work with. So remember, a VA is not easier to hire and is not a direct substitution for a worker in all positions. A VA doing work for your business is going to look different than an employee doing work for your business. So this concept of I'll just hire a VA because it's easier doesn't exist. It is not easier to hire a VA. It's easier to get from point A to point Z of the process, but when it's done in that easier method, typically it ends up in a poor hire with hiring a VA that is not going to fit for your business, and you're going to be back to square one sooner than you would like to be. Okay, so now let's talk about you've done all the work and a VA is right for you. How do you find the right one? Well, I've already alluded to this a little bit throughout the episode, but it's all about knowing what you're looking for and creating a process to help you find the right person. Very similar to what we talk about with hiring employees. Once again, as I mentioned, the process might look a little bit different. Well, not might, will look a little bit different because you're not dealing with candidates for employee jobs. You're looking to hire a contractor, but the core of the process is the same. 1, you need to be clear on what this VA is going to do for your business. Also be clear on what you need from a communication level. Once again, you can't control when and where they work, but you might want to make sure, for example, that they overlap with you. with your business hours. So if you need to jump on a call, they're available. So you might not be talking to them every day, but if they only work what is your evening hours, do you want to have to go out of your way and work during the evenings when you do need to have a conversation over Zoom or over the phone with this person? Maybe, maybe not. You then need to make sure that you're doing your due diligence to find the right people who match your job. Hiring contractors is different than hiring employees because you can't just post things on job boards. Yes, there's places like Fiverr and Upwork, but there's a lot of good contractors and freelancers and VAs that aren't on these platforms. So the best way to start finding the people you need is ask for referrals. I mentioned the posts in Facebook groups. The reason why some of these don't work out is because they just say, I'm hiring a VA, send me your referrals. Well, that's so generic. That's so general. As we talked about, you need to be clear about what this VA is going to do for you because not all VAs do the same tasks. Their specialties are all across the board. So if you're going to post in a group to get referrals or even reach out to your business contacts to get referrals, you need to specify what you need. I'm looking for a virtual assistant that does X, Y, Z. Next, going back to what was important, you need to make sure you have a process set up to determine if this person can do what you need them to do. Once again, you're not going to put them through a formal interview. You're going to get on a call that is typically a sales call from their side, but you want to ask them questions. Ask them questions about when they've done similar work for other clients. If they're doing something that is visual or written communication, ask for samples of their work. Do things to uncover, do they have experience in the area that you need? Once again, it's not a formal interview, but you need to dig deep to make sure that they're right for you. And lastly, this is an important thing to add. This past weekend, I was speaking on a panel at She Podcast Live. We were talking about ending your outsourcing overwhelm with podcast work. And with that particular topic, obviously the question of, can I just give my podcast tasks to my VA comes up all the time. And there, my answer is like, oh, well, it all depends. In many cases, your VA is not the right person because it's not their area of expertise. They don't know what they're doing, or they might not be happy doing those tasks, and you need to hire someone else. So why do I bring this up? Because we already talked about making sure you're hiring someone who can do what you need, that's their specialty. It also means that it's okay to have more than one virtual assistant. It's okay that if you already have a virtual assistant and you realize you need things done that's outside of your virtual assistant's expertise, hire a second one. You can have more than one person with this similar title doing different things for your business. Now, you might ask yourself, is it really a virtual assistant that can be doing these, or do I need to hire someone who maybe uses a different title? For example, instead of hiring another virtual assistant to do podcast editing, you might hire a podcast editor instead. But you can find virtual assistants that have that under their list of specialties. So your current virtual assistant, if you have one, might not be the best for everything. You might be realizing that you hired them for X, Y, and Z, and they're only good at X and Y, and Z needs to go to somebody else. But instead of letting this person go, who's amazing at everything else, you might just hire someone for Z and split the role over two people. So just remember, no, you shouldn't just hire a VA. It doesn't make things easier. But when a VA is the right person, you need to do your due diligence to get the right person. It is not easier to hire a VA than it is to hire an employee. All it means is the process is different. But you still need to do your due diligence if you want the right people on your team. And that's what's important. Growing your team with the right people who are going to help you grow your business and make you feel that there's a value every time you pay them. Are you ready to hire a new team member for your business and you want to ensure you hire the person who can succeed in the role, make you happy, and positively impact your bottom line, then set up time and let's talk, because this is exactly how I help business owners like you. When you go through my Hire framework, not only will you learn how to attract candidates who have the passion you desire, but you'll be able to identify and select candidates who have the skills you need and can succeed in the role. Going through this consultant process not only helps you find the right new hire for your current open position, but it teaches you how to repeat this process with every new position you add to your company as it continues to grow. So if you're a small business owner who is ready to hire, has a rough idea of the position you need to add, and you're tired of going through the hiring process only to end up with bad fitting team members, then let's talk. Send me an email at jamie@growingyourteam.com. That's Jamie, Jamie, @growingyourteam.com, or head on over to growingyourteam.com/jumpstart and let's talk about your hiring needs.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Growing Your Team with your host, Jamie Van Kuyt. Be sure to subscribe and head on over to growingyourteam.com to connect, access the show notes, and discover more ways to hire and leverage your perfect fit team.